Hi everyone, and welcome to this month's InterEngineering's Re-Engineering Pride webinar. This webinar is dedicated to examining the experiences, contributions of queer women in the engineering sector, and we will be discussing the challenges they face, strides they have made, and the pathways towards an inclusive engineering community, celebrating the impact of queer women in engineering and exploring how diversity enhances our field. I'd like to start with just a brief notice to say that we're on Teams this time, so you can have personalised auto captions if you go to the 3 dots and the settings feature. You can turn them on just for yourself there in case you need auto captions. I'll start with some introductions for those who haven't joined us before. I'm Fiona. I'm co-chair of InterEngineering. I work in the geotechnical engineering sector, have done for over 10 years. And yeah, if Poggy, if you'd like to just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Poggy Murray-Whittam. I'm the other co-chair of InterEngineering, and I'm going to switch myself off because this is all about you.
Great stuff, thank you. So yeah, we've got 3 wonderful panelists today. I'm looking forward to discussing lots of different topics with them. So I'll start with Lisa. Lisa Pinney is Chief Executive of the Mining Remediation Authority, formerly the Coal Authority, and has been since June 2018. They're passionate about delivering social and environmental value for communities alongside the taxpayer. The Mining Remediation Authority is a 24/7 emergency response organisation. Lisa has previously spent 20 years with the Environment Agency, latterly a director in the West Midlands, and is a chartered waste manager and chartered environmental scientist. Lisa holds a number of non-executive positions and is chair of the Birmingham and Black Country Wildlife Trust, a board member of the Association of Chief Executives, and a leadership fellow at the St George's House in Windsor, as well as an advisory board member of the ORIS Group, including European Metals Recycling Limited. Today, I've sort of organised the speakers, so we have someone in a chief executive role all the way through their different career grades. I'm hoping that will give us a really great insight into different people's perspectives along their journey. Next, we have Alex Burr. Alex is a geotechnical engineer with 20 years experience in consultancy, working on old infrastructure and new build developments. They're a chartered fellow of the Geological Society and sit in the Society's subcommittee for equality, diversity and inclusion. They have just started working at Atkins Realis in Manchester. And for fun, Alex is also doing a part-time PhD studying queer experiences in the UK's big evangelical churches. Lastly, we have Laura Snowden. Laura has worked as a civil engineer in Mott MacDonald in Bristol for 4 years. They sit within the infrastructure team, so they work on a range of varied fields in multidisciplinary environments, including energy, drainage, highways, and flood alleviation. Outside of this, they are a wellbeing champion and a member of the Advancing LGBTQ Network Committee for the past year, leading and supporting on events and initiatives like LGBT History Month. So, welcome to everyone and thanks so much for joining us. If I've missed anything out and you'd like to end anything now, then please shout up and add anything else. If not, I will move on to some questions to start the conversation. Oh, all good? Perfect.
Recognition to anybody in the audience. If you would like to add any questions, then there is a Q&A and we will come to that towards the end of the discussion.
Yes, perfect, Caroline. Great stuff. So yeah, the first question, I'm hoping this will be sort of a round the table discussion. So I'll start with one and then we end up chatting away, then that's also fine. Firstly, I'd like to start with asking you what encouraged you to work in the engineering sector and your role in particular. We'll start with Alex, perhaps.
Sure. Yes, of course. Although mine was a total accident. I father is a scientist and an engineer, and I wanted to be a scientist and an engineer, and geology was a fun thing to do, so I did that. And then I wanted to stick around at university for another year, and there was a master's available in the School of Engineering, and I did that. And then I ended up doing geotechnical engineering for a career. And it turns out that actually I'm quite good at it and I enjoy it. And it brings a wonderful variety that that really suits me. So that's why I've stuck with it. So yeah.
Perfect. Laura?
Mine was a little bit of an accident as well. I knew I was interested in art and design, and I was pretty good at maths. Neither of my parents are in STEM at all, so they kind of encouraged me to Google what I can do with maths and physics, and I kind of scrolled through the list of engineerings until one sounded interesting, and then yeah, did a bit more research into it than that. But yeah, I found the kind of civil engineering. Originally, I wanted to get into structures and build the next shard, but at uni, I realized that the infrastructure and the environmental side were actually really interesting. So I've kind of gone in that direction.
What about yourself, Lisa?
Thank you. I think there's a theme here, isn't there? I always wanted to be a vet, and I was going to do that for a long time. But stuff as a teenager, I ended up finding out more about environmental science, which was actually a growing kind of thing at that point, and that's what I went on to do my kind of degree in, and worked for the Environment Agency. But really sort of saw that, particularly in terms of instant response, but also some of the best opportunities for sort of making a difference were really, working with fantastic engineers and scientists and doing that. So, I've just gone on throughout my career really to work in those kind of sectors, whether that's flood response or now public safety subsidence and mine water treatment and innovation. I think, for me, and the reason, why I've continued to do it and to work, to the role I do now is really, I think that combination of being able to kind of make a difference, and also, to kind of empower and enable other fantastic people, particularly people who bring different perspectives into the sector.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that we've all kind of, I'm the same. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated, kind of fell into ground engineering because my dad was a farmer and soil science was something I understood. So I think it's interesting how we've all kind of come across it and not necessarily through career advice or schools or things like that. And often come in through like an environmental awareness background as well. I think that's probably something that's worth considering when we're thinking about future pipelines and potential sort of engineering and engineering adjacent fields for the future and how we sort of access that talent pool and how it's communicated. But yeah, it's great to see.
It's wonderful that Laura was able to Google it. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, literally the Wikipedia article for
That
engineers.
didn't exist when I was looking for.
Yeah, we're a bit older.
That's a wonderful accessibility thing. It's great.
I think it's also worth the fact that we can now Google in terms of like visible role models as well. Like if you Google lesbian engineer or is this somewhere I want to work, like there's so much more resource out there as well, and that's why we write articles or do webinars like this, because it allows people to see that there's a space for them in our sector, or sectors, should I say. But
I think that visibility is so important. If you don't, there's a thing, if you don't see it, you can't be it. And I think, it's much better now. Lots more to do as well, but it is really important, that we do all of those things that you've talked about, Fiona. I think in terms of young women, other people seeing what's possible going forwards, because as you say, why we fell into it by accident is I think it wasn't something that was discussed with us at school as possibilities or awareness.
It's been clear, frankly. I stand by one.
Do you think, so the next question I had was, do you think your queer identity has played a part in your choice of employer or workplace environment or sector that you now work in? Maybe start with Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. I think the answer is yes, kind of absolutely, and in different ways. I think, but I mean, I was really kind of passionate about about the environment sector, about working for the Environment Agency. But early in my career, I had some challenging experiences myself, and I've seen other people equally leaving. Generally, people don't like to make a fuss. Kind of leaving and going elsewhere, and it mattered to me, and I came quite close to leaving the organisation, but really, felt that I believed in what we did, but not necessarily kind of how we were going about it. So a lot of challenging at that time to make it a good place for LGBT people to work. And I think that's really important. But I think there is something, I think, about some other battles perhaps we've had to face that maybe also make us really good at some of the work in the engineering sector, and working with communities and solving difficult problems and what have you. And I think one of the great things for me about coming to the Coal Authority, the Mine Remediation Authority, was being able to be really clear about the type of leader that I wanted to be, and the changes that I thought the organisation could make to bring in great talent from everywhere. And the board kind of really signing up to that, and that was really important to me, that say I could be the leader that I felt I wanted to be and that the organisation needed. So it's definitely been a factor at lots of points, I think, through my career, sometimes through adversity, and sometimes through opportunity.
That's great to hear. Alex?
Yes, I think absolutely. So the question is, has my queer identity influenced my choices over my career? Yes, almost certainly, but only because I can't extract it from all of the other kind of intersecting, overlapping experiences that I have as a disabled person, as an anxious person, as a hot mess as a person, and I have been very lucky in geotechnical engineering in many ways to fall in with some really great people. And we're going to talk about this later, but it's going to be interesting to see what really great looks like in context. But so I've only worked for 3 companies over my career. I worked for a very small one for 15 years and a medium-sized one for 5, and I've literally just started at Atkins, which is one of the biggest there is. So we'll see how that pans out. But I certainly stayed with the first one for 15 years because of like-minded attitudes towards things like purpose and support and caring for employees. And there were a number of occasions when I stood back and said, actually, that's not okay, and we need to stop doing that. But it was mostly things around advocating for English lessons for colleagues who were struggling with their English, and other non-queer related workplace stuff. I think in retrospect, I think I would have stepped in on some of the queer related stuff much earlier, but but my choice to move on over the last 2 companies has absolutely been because they are very inclusive. They want to be deliberately so, and they say that up front, and they have not tolerated any pushback on that, which has been really good. As a matter of policy, as opposed to kind of just personal accident. So,
Yeah. And Laura?
I've only worked for 1 company, and I'll admit that that was not my highest priority while I was looking. My highest priority was who will employ me during lockdown. But I think, but it has definitely it has made working for the company being a very inclusive environment. There's a really big push on kind of well-being, inclusivity. We have pride values, which are like at some points forced down your throat, but in a very well-meaning way. For such a large corporation, I feel like kind of well-being inclusion is something that Mott's does really well. And I know that if I was looking at moving on in companies, it's definitely something that I would be kind of asking more about in interviews and looking into a bit more.
Yeah, I think a similar perspective, it comes back to a bit of what Lisa said in terms of being at a point in your career where you're looking to change a workplace or bring your values. And I have been quite upfront when interviewing as my career has progressed in terms of what I expect, in terms of if there's an existing policy or I've joined a smaller company and they've had nothing in place, and I've said, look, I will support you through this, but I expect there to be enough time to do that, and an engagement on their behalf. And again, I definitely see within looking at different employers and what their profile is within policy and things like that. So, but I also think Alex's response is very true in terms of the culture around geotechnical engineering tends to be quite an inclusive one in some respects, in that we are quite a diverse bunch. And we just hosted a British Tunnelling Association and Early Careers networking event in London, and Poggy had not met too many geotechnical engineers before, and remarked on how welcome they felt in the event. And I think I'm not necessarily that much of an extrovert, and I don't typically prefer networking, but I have to say I'm quite happy to go to a geotechnical event. Tends to be more inclusive and just has, on a personal level, quite an inclusive feel to it, comparative to maybe a structural and civils event where you just get quite a lot of the same type of personality. So I think certain sectors are more progressive than others. We're not there yet, maybe, but sort of stepping in the right direction. And I think that comes from great leadership and people putting themselves forward to have open conversations, which is nice to see. I think also it comes back to Lisa's point on adversity as well. Do you stick with it because you believe in the concept and try and make it right? Or is that too much? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's too much on your own mental capacity and you just move on, or you stick with it and try and make a difference. So I think there's elements of both that are equally valid. Speaking to both. Sorry.
I was going to say, yes, it's worth considering the cost to yourself and weighing those things up, and that cost can pull in different directions sometimes, change versus what you want to stand up for. And
I think Poggy is not here, but he can. They can definitely comment on deciding to pivot to make a difference. They worked in mechanical, electrical engineering, automation, struggled to try and make a difference in the workplace, weren't listened to, and it impacted them. And since moved into D&I advocacy through their professional career, and chose to make a difference that way. So I think there's no right path. It's what works best for you. But that's great. I guess that sort of moves on quite well to what changes have you noticed with regards to inclusivity within engineering during your career? Maybe Lisa and Alex and myself might be able to answer more so than Laura, but yeah, if we start with Lisa.
Thank you. So many, I think. A lot more women in the sector, which is great, and a lot more diversity, kind of more broadly. I think, the life we've had absolutely fantastic female and diverse in all senses kind of engineers kind of at the Mining Remediation Authority. And it's been big in that sector because women weren't allowed to work underground until from 1842 until 1989, and so that really sort of hampered the industry and some of the organizations like mine that came after that. So that's been something that we've given a real focus. But I think kind of more broadly, I mean, for me, I think just a much more awareness about the importance and the benefits of people who are different, who think differently, who are more representative of the communities that we work in, in all of that, more kind of mentoring and support and thought about development and encouraging and kind of championing people kind of in the sector. I think much more awareness is, as Laura and I spoke about after, others about pride and about the importance of kind of networking and kind of safe spaces really for people to share experiences and talk about things practical stuff like women's fit PPE more to do. But you know, it's fantastic talking about that, about the importance of facilities and, you know, all of that. So I think lots of practical things kind of around that, which is, yeah, certainly really different from when I started my career.
Perfect. Alex, anything
Yeah.
to?
Likewise, I mean, very similar. The thing that I have, the thing that I look back on and go, oh gosh, I wish I knew then what I knew now, which isn't possible, but is there was a lot of casual homophobia 20 or so years ago, and things have changed a lot in the last 10 years. That is less socially acceptable. It's less socially acceptable in the workplace. I think, as Leona said, that there's always been more acceptance, or indeed expectation, that geotechnical engineers are eccentric. So I think a lot of the inclusion in that group is actually more to do with the fact, oh well, you know, you're odd, you're queer in the sense of just like, well, we're all a bit weird, aren't we? And if you're not, why aren't you a structural engineer? But that did not necessarily come from a place of queer inclusion, or I mean, we're talking about all the other things like race and ethnicity and everything that kind of overlaps with that. There's a lot of prejudice, both on site and in the office in different ways. Usually, they're very different cultures. So I had made notes. But stuff that I experienced early on, like sexual harassment on site, being told to kind of suck it up when clients are rude because you should be prioritizing the client's comfort rather than your own. We're definitely kind of starting to change, but it's so much better now. I don't know what your feeling is, Liz, Lisa, rather. But yeah, so that sounded like that was almost a bit of a downer, but actually I think it's not, because it's changed, and it is, and
It's a culture shift, isn't it? And I think some areas of our sectors have improved more than others, and work environments and expectations, and how that's communicated to early careers in terms of what is acceptable and what you're well within your rights to call out, and giving people the confidence and authority that it's okay and that your line manager will support you. You don't have to put up with whatever that is. Which I don't think, even early in my career, I didn't really feel that was something that I could call out, or I would have to out myself, if you see what I mean, very early in my career. So I think that has even changed in the last 10 years. And also, just as a society, media makes a big difference. Media is toxic, but also it's educational. So a lot of people that potentially had no exposure to the queer community now see it on TV and absorb it on Coronation Street or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a choice of theirs to educate themselves, but they do have that level of exposure, which kind of makes a big difference if they're then interacting with members of the queer community. They might not get it right all the time, especially on site, but they at least have an awareness of how they should interact. I think a lot of it comes from a lack of awareness and understanding, and that's only improved by visibility. So yeah, Laura, have perhaps any input in terms of your perspectives?
Yeah, I would say that I do feel quite fortunate coming into engineering at the time I am. I mean, obviously, it's not perfect. I have definitely experienced the ill-fitting PPE, the kind of boiler suits with knee pads that are actually by my ankles. But in terms of speaking up and like feeling kind of protected and empowered to speak up around any kind of issues that are raised on site or with clients or in the office, it does feel like everyone's much more ready to listen. I think it's maybe not an obvious inclusive initiative, but even just in the last few years, I think the availability of flexible working has been a really big push, at least where I'm working. Not just working from home, but kind of flexible hours, enabling kind of people with children or people with kind of other commitments. It's just making life a bit easier for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. I think also it's given the cultural climate, potentially there is so much more work to do around the trans community and supporting them within our industry. But we've almost set the ball rolling and the tools are in motion, having raised awareness in the profile around other communities and initiatives that we just have to keep the momentum and keep ensuring that we're standing up as good allies within all of the spaces and challenging that where it happens, because they're probably one of the most vulnerable within the sector, and potentially, especially on site, one of the most vulnerable communities to protect. So yeah, I think that's really important to acknowledge. Yeah, I suppose one of the other points I had was research indicates that retention is still a big problem within engineering for women. It's sort of an open discussion, really, from all levels, but predominantly we've seen from the research that it falls within mid-career. From people's perspectives, what do you think are the best ways we can go about tackling this? Open up. So Lisa, if you wanted to start.
So I think it's really important. I think the most important thing, is to listen to people, to listen to women, and at different states. I think at different times in people's careers. So what people need in kind of early careers, kind of support what's most important to them, what helps most. Is potentially different to people who are thinking about having children or who have children. The kind of support to that. I think the connectivity. And particularly while people are off with children, and making it really supportive and really easy to come back and to continue in whatever form people want to, and to doing that, but also not making assumptions about that either. And that's where the conversation is so important, I think. And I think that's right, through right through to perimenopause, menopause, later kind of careers as well. And listening and hearing and thinking kind of about that is important, so that you can really think about how do we get the best from people at every stage in their career. And I think that kind of reduces kind of dropout. I think with women, lots of other people as well, but I think women probably talk about it more. But the piece around confidence, it can be really easy, particularly if you're out the sector for a while, to lose confidence, feel the world has kind of moved on fast, and talk a lot about that. And I think that's where that kind of championing, mentoring, support, that connectivity is really important to understand what people need. And also really important to challenge that kind of slightly protective, kind of benign paternalism piece as well, about assuming people won't want certain opportunities or certain jobs or projects or kind of all of that. Again, let's just have the right conversations with people and empower people to say if it's something that isn't right for them at that point in time, that's great. But that's just true for for white men as it is for anybody else, and I think rather than making assumptions about what people might or might not want to do, how do we make sure that there's proper conversations and equality of opportunity? So I think that's absolutely key. And I think allies and great line managers who have good conversations are the key to kind of retaining women. And I think increasingly businesses are realizing that, and also potentially the opportunity for us, it's a big opportunity for us to offer flexibility to attract women in roles that really work for them and really allow us to benefit from their skills. So I think it's all about listening and discussing personally.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you, but also potentially one of the supporting factors of that is we mentor our engineers through chartership and through professional qualifications and through technical ability, but potentially we don't mentor them well enough to be good listeners and to have the soft skills to have those good conversations. Maybe some of us through our queer identities and other challenges that we face have brought forward some more of those adaptive skills, but that doesn't mean to say that everyone who reaches the senior line management level possesses those skills to have those conversations, and hence maybe there's a miscommunication there. So yeah, it's definitely a really important point that yeah, something for employers to consider.
I can't.
I was going to say, Alex. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can't argue with any of that. Like flexibility, flexible working, disability accommodations, all of these things, they make such a difference. Yeah, mentoring in later career, such a big thing about that. Because we can't. People have a tendency to say, "Oh, I'm not really good at that." And I'm like, well, can we help you learn? And I think that's really interesting. You were talking about listening skills. About 10 years ago, I was doing a lot of volunteering and a lot of I was leading a team of about 25 volunteers, surrounded by teenagers and no, that's not fair. Like younger adults coming up and saying all sorts of things. I thought I am not equipped for this, so I went and got level 2 and level 3 listening skills qualifications in my spare time, like. Which was absolutely invaluable. And I can't say that I'm a perfect listener or anything, but it was absolutely invaluable. It was really, really good. But my first response to this talking point was, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't noticed that. When I started in this industry, there were quite a few women who I looked up to as mentors. Not many later in their career at that point, but 10, 20 years ahead of me, quite a lot. By no means the majority. And most of them have stuck around, and admittedly, I have up until now worked in relatively small geotechnical teams, but often those people are pretty much still around in the industry. So I hadn't noticed that was a huge issue. It makes sense that it would be for all of the reasons you list.
It was more sort of not necessarily just within our sector, but engineering in general. That was the trends that was coming out of general research, that when looking at the skills gap, we'd got a lot more influx of women within junior early career roles, given the push towards STEM within schools, but that equally we were losing more out of the mid-career sector. Probably pressures around childcare fundamentally, and also moving into adjacent sectors and other fields that they felt more supported or comfortable in. Yeah. So yeah, it's there wasn't further research into the cause, but I think it's something we need to be mindful of. And I think we see a lot of early careers mentorship, don't we? And you made a great point that there potentially isn't that much sort of organised mentoring. I mean, I'll cold call quite a few people and ask for some, but yeah, it would be very nice if there was a higher, sort of more structured facility to see that happen. But.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed is lots of companies seem to be talking about the menopause overtly in the last 5 years or so. I think that's fantastic. Speaking of somebody who's probably going to run into it at full speed sooner or later, then it's very, yeah,
definitely.
Flexible working covers all of us.
Definitely. Laura, have you got any perspective from an early careers? How can we keep you?
No, I think I think all the points raised have been, really, really spot on. I think the flexibility, a kind of psychologically safe space, like sounds so buzzwordy, but like a culture of listening, and then actually like actions based on that, not just listening and hearing, but actually doing things. But yeah, and then I suppose role models, which is kind of, I agree. I think there's been a big push for kind of, I don't know, at least in my career, like a lot more junior staff coming in, much more diverse at kind of lower grades. But yeah, I wonder if it's, I've seen a few things recently about kind of returners programs and like retraining programs. So people who do take career breaks, not kind of just assuming it will be easy to kind of fit back into the engineering sector, especially when everything's changing so quickly at the moment, but like targeted programs to kind of ask what training would be helpful and like move into roles that are kind of suitable or interesting, kind of, yeah, I guess rejoining the sector in that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think also not looking to stereotype, but we'd all like to engineer with a purpose. Whether that's climate related, so energy or renewables or environmental flood defences or geo-environmental, protecting the ground or building places for people. I think we're all motivated by making things better, making things safer. I think part of the resilience that we have within our workplaces comes from the rewarding nature of what we do. So ensuring that we're communicating and understanding that within our day jobs is an important factor, as we sort of thought about earlier, around willingness to continue to make a difference and to improve space. It comes from the value of the hours that we put in as well. So I think that's really important. I haven't seen any Q&As pop up, but perhaps Poggy can let us know if any have. Oh, yep, I can see there are. Sorry, it didn't
There is
show.
one.
I can't actually get it to see in full view. Would you mind reading it out? Sorry.
Sure. To the panelists, have you ever considered leaving engineering? If so, why? And why did you end up staying? If not, why not? What has kept you in engineering?
I can answer that one. Anyone else?
You can go first, Alex.
Okay, absolutely. I considered leaving engineering. Certainly my early career, I wrote the resignation letter as kind of like a coping mechanism about once every 18 months or so. I seriously considered it because of stresses in the workplace. It's really hard to untangle what those things are, right? Is it the queerness? Is it the womanness? Is it the gender queerness? The other disability stuff? Is it people? Is it specifics? As Fiona mentioned straight up, I am also a theological researcher. I have had other experiences in church environment that were really not positive as a queer person. In fact, I only began identifying as queer relatively late in my 30s, because until then I hadn't realized if you weren't a lesbian there were other options. So exploring that and researching that and speaking with other people who've had similar experiences and writing about it is something that I want to spend a lot of time doing. And I've published books and journal articles on that as well. But engineering pays better. I'm sorry. It is very, very difficult to get a job in academia, particularly in the humanities. And this is what I can do very well, that I enjoy. And I think I've found the right balance, doing the research part-time and doing engineering as a career as well. But that's another queer thing, isn't it? Geotechnical engineer, engineering geologist, researcher, engineer. I've never been 100% of anything. So, yeah.
Lisa, do you have any experiences you're comfortable to share?
Yeah, well, I touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but when I kind of first came out, it was a big deal for me. I kind of grew up in Cornwall. I didn't really have any openly gay role models, so I was kind of like working through kind of stuff kind of anyway, and had a real challenge at work at that time. My line manager didn't handle it at all. I started getting left out of kind of key meetings and kind of projects that I was given stuff that kept me in the office and kind of away from other people. And when I had my next performance review, I kind of went from being a kind of top performer to a failing performer, but he wouldn't talk about why. And he wouldn't let me have any time off to move house or deal with any of the kind of changes that were going on in my life kind of more broadly. And very much kind of felt that the problem was of my own making. In fact, that's what he actually said. So that was a real time when I really was seriously kind of looking at kind of leaving and doing something different. And luckily I applied for a job in a different part of the organisation, a different region. And had a completely different experience kind of there, which was great, and that made me decide that I wanted to stay, but I wanted to make it different for other people. And other people then started, I talked about kind of experience I'd had, and people started coming to me and sharing their kind of stories. And that was when we decided to form an LGBT network and to challenge the organisation, work with the organisation to be better. And thankfully we were really successful in doing that. And so that that was a real moment, I think, when I could have left kind of that kind of profession. I mean, since then I find operational and engineering organizations just so kind of fascinating, and I firmly believe in the values and the work that we do. And I've been at a point for a while now in my career, I think, where I'm kind of big enough, tough enough, and well known enough that I won't go. I'm very clear about who I am, and I'm really privileged for that. And but I'm really aware of that. And therefore too, that it is really important to try and create environments where other people don't have to go through that sort of thing, and that they can feel supported if they're going through tough times. And I absolutely echo what Fiona said earlier about trans friends and colleagues kind of in that space. And I think it's so important, and something I feel so passionately about, because again, going back to making a difference in the delivery on the ground, we need fantastic people from all kind of walks of life to deliver the outcomes that we need in society. And inclusion is so important in that space. So for me, I think I will probably stay to the end of my career in that space, because I hope that I can help to make that happen for other people.
Perfect. Laura?
Yeah, I mean, it's not been that long, but I would definitely say I've had a few wobbles already. I mean, I think I know that I want to stay in engineering in some respect, at least. I think that I think a lot of it does boil down to what was said earlier, like a desire to make things better and like practically be doing things to try and, I don't know, to try and help. And engineering is what I can do and what I do. So it's my way of kind of achieving that, I guess, of helping. Yeah, that being said, I think I can't see myself in the same kind of sector forever. I would really like to move into kind of international development or into healthcare, and whether that ends up being engineering design or management, or, to be honest, like CAD technician work, which I actually love right now. I think there's such a variety within the engineering sector that I know I'm going to stay in it. That being said, I am also planning on taking some chunk of unpaid leave next year to do something that isn't engineering, which I'm very, very privileged to be able to do, and very grateful that my workplace is going to be kind of taking me back after that, because I do want to come back, but calling it my very delayed gap year. Yeah, just a bit of variety while I can, really.
Yeah, I think that's a similar but different theme along all of us, is that we like variety as well. I think I have had similar challenging experiences when I was in my early career, predominantly contracting site-based roles, struggling to wonder if the environment was for me, very much interested in the technical, could see that from a mental health perspective, the somewhat combative environment within contracting was not necessarily for me full time. I'm very happy on site. I love site work. I love engineering. Do I want to do that all day, every day outside? No, I like a good balance. I'm not someone that likes to sit in the office every day, but equally, I've done a stint and I now prefer a balance. I think if engineering looked like for me full time on site, I probably wouldn't have stuck. I think that also comes back to not necessarily experiencing homophobia, because I'm in the privileged somewhat position of not necessarily having to be out, but there is certainly a lot of misogyny, and that gets quite what's the word? Grating, potentially. I'm not a person that likes conflict, so whilst you can be on some sites and they're very supportive and you're having a great time, you can have weeks where you're just solidly butting heads with people and trying to get stuff done. So I think for me, I haven't left because I've been able to pivot into roles that have suited me better. And I think the opportunity and privilege to do so really helps. And understanding and navigating your career and being honest with what you want and your expectations has kept me. I'd also say InterEngineering has had a big part to play, because especially trying to navigate coming out during my early career with a contractor, having raised that with them, they just gave me a box of pens. And as an early careers person, I wasn't really sure what to do with that. So yeah, InterEngineering has been entirely valuable to just talk to other queer engineers and understand how to navigate that, what other people's experiences were. Predominantly people's were positive, so it gave me the hope and opportunity that things would go well when coming out. But yeah, I think community plays a big part, and that doesn't necessarily have to be within your employer. You can find your network outside of that. They weren't even rainbow pens. They were just company branded ones. They were just company branded ones. But it's all good.
Another question
beautiful.
has come in.
Perfect. Great stuff.
Question, I'll just read it out verbatim. Hey Laura, you mentioned that pride values would be something you'd look for if ever considering moving on from MOTS. If I can ask, and you don't mind sharing with us, what else would make an employer stand out to you, especially as a woman in engineering? Are there particular things you'd expect or hope to see that would make you feel supported and confident in your role?
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks for the question. I'm happy to start at least. But I think yeah, so the pride values, it's one of the many acronyms that we have, but which I think is a universal engineering experience, but it actually stands for progress, respect, integrity, diversity and excellence. And when I first joined the company, I thought that was kind of just something they like to say in the interview, but actually seeing how it's really integrated into everything from like project bids to the kind of we have like office wellbeing champions and kind of leadership programs for women or people from disadvantaged backgrounds, but people from like alternative routes into engineering. I think it's really nice to see that the company actually like really stands for what it likes to tell people it stands for. I think that's something that I'd be asking about, kind of what are the core values of whichever company I'd be looking at, and how are they integrated into day-to-day life of employees? How are they integrated into the welfare of employees? What are the kind of what are the routes that people can speak up if there is an issue? How is that kind of protecting its employees? I also think kind of on a less maybe a less queer women side, but just kind of the general benefits, but particularly, I mean, I'm not at the stage of looking at kind of maternity leave and things like that, but what benefits are offered to all employees. There's a few things at the moment where I'm looking at kind of like healthcare things and whether gender affirming healthcare is covered under healthcare benefit policies, for example. Yeah, I've not looked at other jobs yet, but I think specifically the well-being and the inclusion and diversity policies and like actions that are actually in place in a company would make it stand out for me.
Perfect. I think we've got another question in.
We do.
Let me just
I'll read it out.
I can see it this time if it's okay.
Oh, can you? Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, I figured that out. You know me in tech. What lessons are there that you can share from your experiences on site, outside your immediate office environment, both from a queer perspective and from a woman's perspective, that applies, that I can use to protect my personal and emotional safety at work, brackets, in a newly out trans woman in a rapidly worsening environment? If anyone wants to start.
I think for me, it starts from feeling some confidence in your employer, and that, you know, kind of support in terms of, you know, that when you are and about, that you feel that, you know, you have that support. I think that's really important. I think that's true, you know, for everyone, but I can recognise it would be very much, you know, with your situation at the moment. But I think overall sites are better. It does depend a bit from sector to sector. I do a lot of work with the waste industry, and that's moved a lot. But I think I think there's a range of different types of sites, aren't there, where things can feel more challenging. I think having that confidence from your employer is that you'll be supported is one of them. And I think looking for, you know, some of the things that Laura talked about. I think also, you know, what policies have people got around their support for employees, that nobody should have to be kind of harassed or anything on site for any reason. Are good things to think about. I mean, I've been on sites, you know, where I used to do one particular site where, you know, they always used to run out with the sign-in book, and I didn't really understand why. And then one day I turned up and they hadn't seen me, and I went in, and it was because one entire wall of the signing cabin was covered in kind of page 3 pictures. At best, you know, we've all been through those kind of things. They're kind of banter and what have you. And I think, again, some of that comes back to your personal confidence and resilience. But, you know, to say when something's okay and when it's not. I think we make decisions about what we think we can deal with ourselves, what we might need support from others to deal with. But I mean, generally, you know, my experience on sites has been to be really clear about what I'll join in with, what's a bit of banter and what isn't, categorically. But I think it comes back to how do you feel personally? What support have you got around you? And you know, what feels okay. I'm sure others have got views as well.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, and also from a line manager's perspective of early careers people, I was delighted when someone came up to me and said that they were experiencing something they weren't comfortable with on site, and they would like to, one, raise a complaint, but then also discuss it with me, and then we worked forward next steps of building that confidence back up. So whether it was they didn't want to not go back to that environment because it was an opportunity and it was work, but maybe just managing that, so their confidence was someone else would go with them for a few visits, and there was going to be a toolbox talk, so that it was addressed in a way that didn't necessarily draw attention to them directly, but that the cultural change happened on site. So there are definitely ways to try and ensure that people feel comfortable, and you shouldn't feel like you're asking for too much. Like, your comfort and your safety on site is paramount, and you should ask for what you need to ensure that's in place. But I appreciate it's challenging, and InterEngineering is there, so we have lots of people in our community, so we can share lived experiences and support each other's with things that we maybe have in place within different employers, and also within the wider Equal Engineers network, provide a lot of resource for employers as well around trans inclusion in the workplace. So yeah, definitely worth keeping in touch and reaching out to the community. So yeah. Perfect. I think time's creeping on and we're nearly up.
There is one more question that's come through.
Blimey, we're keeping busy. Sorry, I lost that again now. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, the question is, back to the role of human relations skills in creating inclusive workspaces. One thing I keep championing for a US-based engineer is requirement for engineering fellows to be accountable for their empowerment behaviors and performance with colleagues, not just their technical performance. How have you each seen senior engineering leaderships held accountable for their own psychological impact on people, if at all? If anyone wants to chip in, there's probably a quick opportunity for a response there.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the things that we've been looking at as an advancing LGBT network and committee. It's been I've forgotten the word, allyship, but not just passive allyship, I suppose, like actionable allyship in the workplace particularly. So we've been creating resources for executive teams and for people managers. We currently are working on a coming out guidance document that's for there to be kind of a resource for people who want to come out to people at work, and also for people managers who I'm aware there's like a big difference between being an unsafe environment to work in, and also just being a awkward engineer who doesn't really know how to have those conversations. So having a kind of engineer's standard manual of how to react when people come out to you. And one of the things in there is we've got active listening, we've got also just kind of asking people what they need, I suppose, whether it's something that, I don't know, I mean, I'm thinking about coming out in particular here, but
yeah,
whether they want a response of kind of, okay, we'll be, I can inform people, or you can tell people, or you can share your pronouns, or I can share pronouns in the beginning of meetings, and kind of how do you want me to, like, how can I help in that way? And I think, yeah, our kind of push at the moment is for kind of the work is not just being done by people who need inclusion, but the work is being done by people who maybe already have privilege or power in those situations. Yeah, I'm not sure that actually that fully answered the question, but it's definitely something that we're kind of, that I think is a big thing that is kind of being
it's really important.
Pushed at the moment.
Yeah, some of the best senior leaders I've come across have had the ability to be transparent in their lack of knowledge or comfort around certain topics. So they're willing to speak openly around their lack of understanding and willingness to learn. And I think that's really powerful, especially as a leader. And that allows conversations to be had and growth to be had within spaces. So yeah, I definitely think that's a really positive thing that your company is doing to sort of challenge that, and real, as you say, non-passive allyship and actual advocacy, which is really important. So thank you for sharing. I will. Yeah, Alex. No, it's okay. Go on.
I mean, I was just going to say that that can also go the other way. It doesn't always go well when you have those challenging conversations, and sometimes it takes you having those conversations and it not going well, and other people's having those conversations and it not going well for real change to occur. But it may not impact you, but it may impact people further down the line. So even if it doesn't go well for you, I would encourage you to advocate for yourself and your colleagues if you need to, but I recognise that that is a very high risk thing to do, and I acknowledge it. So yeah, sometimes you got to do what's right for you too.
And
Definitely.
then just look for organisations that invest in the people development of their leaders and not just the technical skills. And actually, it's true at all levels in organisation. But I think increasingly people are recognising that technical skills are awesome and really needed, but in leadership, that's something that people need to be supported and help with as well. In order to get the best out of their people. And I think it's becoming easier to tell which are the organisations that really do that.
Definitely. Thank you all for all your contributions. You've been excellent, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this evening's webinar, so hopefully everyone else on the panel has as well. Just a reminder, this is recorded and we'll also be putting this up online on our website and also on YouTube, so people can watch back. Also a reminder, this weekend we're at Manchester Pride, so come and join us if people are available. And our next webinar is Re-engineering Pride. The webinar series and the theme is Pride and Cultural Heritage, and that's going to be in October. So we look forward to everyone joining us then. And thanks once again. Great to see you all, and I'll end the webinar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.